Donald Trump's defense team is now assembled. And are they up to the task of defending the former president against a partisan political hack witch hunt? We see there are new attorneys on this board. We've already heard from Joe Tacopina. We're going to listen to him a bit more today. Susan Nicholas is also on the team. We have Todd Blanche is a new lawyer who enters the game today. And we'll learn more about him. And then, of course, because we're talking about Trump's lawyers, we've got Alina Abba. She's a brilliant commentator. So we'll come back to that in a minute. But first, Joe Tacopina was on CNN, and there are interesting appearances taking place right now. A lot of Trump lawyers are appearing on sort of lefty news sites like CNN, and I think we have Alina Abba was on with Dans les Mots. So we'll go through that in a quick minute. But Joe Tacopina is one of Trump's main defense attorneys, and he was on with CNN explaining what he has been hearing and what this process is going to look like.
Me now is the former president's lawyer for this case, Joe Tacopina. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. I first want to ask you about what you know at this moment about the arraignment, how it's going to go. Walk us through what is going to happen when the former president shows up in New York.
Well, then, I mean, in theory, it should be like the hundreds of other arraignments I've done in that building over the course of my career, which is you walk in, you see a judge, you plead not guilty, you set a schedule, and you leave. Obviously, this is different. This has never happened before. I've never had Secret Service involved in an arraignment before at 100 Center Street. So the answer to that question, Dan, is I honestly don't know how this is going to go. Hopefully as smoothly as possible, and then we begin the battle to right this wrong, because it's a day that, in my opinion, the rule of law in the United States has died.
The rule of law in the United States has died. We'll come back to that. But his point about the arraignment is exactly right. That's how these work. They're very quick. We've covered many arraignments here on this channel, and they are relatively benign hearings. They come in, you know what you've been charged with? You want me to read them formally for you? No? Okay, here's the list. You waive the readings. Okay, great. You have a lawyer? Great, you do. Release conditions, pretty simple. You're kind of in and out. And a lot of this stuff you figure out before the whole proceeding takes place. So that's how it should be. Now, this is the former president. We've got a whole Secret Service team of people here, all the media and all the hyperventilating from Alvin Bragg and his team. So how is it going to go? We don't know.
We'll get to that in a second, but just on the logistics, do you know what time it starts?
2:15.
You know, nothing's been nailed down yet.
Okay.
I think that's going to happen tomorrow, but I think sometime in the afternoon.
Will there be a perp walk? You said you've done many of these before. Most of them do have perp walks.
Not really, not in a case like this. But, you know, look, I anticipate them trying to get every ounce of publicity out of this that they can get. You know, I don't know if that's going to happen again. Secret Service is involved. So hopefully this will be as painless and classy as possible for a situation like this, which I don't even know really what brings us here, but that's a different story.
I'm trying to put myself in his position, and I'm thinking, okay, well, I've been in that courtroom a million times. Like downtown Phoenix here, we have the Maricopa County Superior Court. It's right down the street. I'm thinking, okay, what if I was appearing with the president and he was being indicted? You know, I guess the Secret Service would probably take over all of the security, you know, features with the court security staff. And they'd probably take over most of the building and then vet it. And then they would say, okay, this is how we're doing it. Where does he need to be at what time? And they would handle the whole thing. And then as a defense attorney, you're probably just making sure nothing's going awry in that process. And you know where things are, so you know where to go and how the process goes. But it would be a very strange feeling. It'd be a very foreign experience. It'd be like a unique court appearance for something you may have done hundreds of times.
Some of the basics are, as you said, you know, necessary as part of this process. Mugshot. Will he have to take a mugshot?
Probably. It's a felony.
Again, Dana, you're asking me questions that this is not normal operating procedure. Yeah, it's all up in the air. All the Tuesday stuff is still very much up in the air, other than the fact that we will very loudly and proudly say not guilty.
Well, you're a very seasoned attorney, so presumably your strategy is not up in the air. So let's talk about what you're thinking about when it comes to the legal strategy once Donald Trump is arraigned. Are you going to move to dismiss the case right off the bat in the arraignment? And if so, on what grounds?
Probably hasn't seen it yet.
We're not doing anything at the arraignment because that would be showmanship and nothing more, because we haven't even seen the indictment yet. we will take the indictment, we will dissect it. The team will look at every potential issue that we will be able to challenge, and we will challenge. And of course, I very much anticipate a motion to dismiss coming because there's no law that fits this. And you have a situation where, the federal government, the Department of Justice turned this matter down. The FEC, which governs federal election laws, said there's no violation here. Yet somehow a state prosecutor has taken a misdemeanor and cobbled together to make it a felony by alleging a violation of federal campaign violations, and the FEC said it doesn't exist.
Right. Let me ask you about that because you mentioned it. You've been talking a lot about the FEC and federal investigations and allegations, investigations, I should say, that didn't end up in an indictment on the federal level. But we haven't seen the specifics, and we should say that over and over again. This is still under seal, this indictment. But because it is on a local level, on a state level, presumably this will be focused on those issues where he allegedly broke the law there, whether it becomes an issue of trying to defraud a business or something along those lines, not necessarily at the FEC and things that you're discussing.
No, it can't be. This was a federal presidential election. The allegation here, in some Twilight Zone sort of scenario, is that he settled the civil case 6 years earlier, something that happens, by the way, all the time. A civil case was settled with confidentiality agreements between a lawyer that was representing him and a lawyer representing the Stormy Daniels. Trump didn't even sign that settlement agreement, so they signed it. The lawyer financed it, subsequently gave him a host of invoices for legal services over the course of a year. They were recorded, but understand, here's the key distinction, Dana. They were recorded in their entries. They were never filed anywhere. They were never filed with the IRS. They never took a tax deduction, and they were never filed with the FEC because they weren't required to. This was a personal expenditure, not a campaign expenditure. Had it been a campaign expenditure, he would have used campaign funds, and then, of course, we'd be talking about here today the outrage that Donald Trump used campaign funds for personal expenditure.
Right.
They'd be baying for his scalp.
Yeah.
It's a completely upside-down world, so he's damned if he did and damned if he didn't. So those are misdemeanors, by the way, the record entries, which don't exist. They're not false entries, but assuming they were, they're misdemeanors way beyond the statute of limitations. So they had to cobble them together to try and get a felony.
I'm going to speak to Michael Cohen's attorney next. He says that there is actual evidence that your client, the former president, participated in falsifying business records.
What is it?
Have you seen any such evidence?
I know there's no such evidence. I mean, look, Michael Cohen's lawyer is spinning Michael Cohen's side. Michael Cohen is a pathological, convicted liar. Perjury. He's lied to banks, the IRS, Congress.
Exactly. Right on.
Now he's saying he lied to the
the
FEC
convicted
when he sent
perjurer?
that letter saying there
That's
was no
what he
campaign
said?
violation. I heard him on CNN the other day saying that when he pled guilty under oath, when he became a new man, he really wasn't guilty. He was forced to plead guilty. So that's perjury, if that's now true. He's someone who is constitutionally incapable of telling the same story the same way twice. So I'm not really worried about what Michael Cohen is saying on this. The records and the facts will speak for themselves.
Okay.
Yeah, right on. And he absolutely hit that one hard. Michael Cohen is not credible at all. We've got signed documents of his where he said that I waive attorney-client privilege. He was on CNN the other day, said, I don't remember that. I never signed anything. And Robert Costello said he said one thing and he told the grand jury another. He's already been convicted for perjury. The guy is a bona fide liar, lies time and time again. And people are holding him out as credible for the grand jurors. And maybe they may not even know any of that. So that's Joe Tacopina. I appreciate his slam dunk when she set him up on that softball about Michael Cohen. Well done. Now, this is a little bit more about them. So this is Joe Tacopina, and the other person I wanted to share with you is this woman. Her name is Susan Nicholas, another one of Trump lawyers who is involved in the case. These are the key figures who are here. Let's just talk about a couple of them. This is the legal duo. We've already heard from Joe Tacopina. Now, Susan Nicholas is less communicative. She's sort of the behind the scenes. We call Joe Tacopina front stage. We call Susan Nicholas backstage. Joe Tacopina, the orator, the rhetorician, the persuader, the showman. Susan Nicholas is the thinker, the person who is assembling the drafts, the briefer, the researcher, the strategist, the tactician. She develops it, hands it off to Joe, offloads some of the bandwidth between the two. Hopefully they make a good team. Now, in separate interviews, they say that they have a productive working relationship. They describe it as harmonious, adding that they're likely going to add a third member to the team. And guess what? They did. We're going to learn about him in a minute. Of course, I've worked with difficult clients over the years, said Nicholas, which I found very offensive. Donald Trump, could you imagine him being difficult as a client? He has been calling Alvin Bragg names, and that's very offensive to a lot of people out there. Tacopina said the case is in some ways unremarkable. In other ways, it's extraordinary. On the one hand, this is the belly of the beast, low-level case. On the other hand, it's the former president. He said, I'm buckling my seatbelt, buddy. Let's put it that way. Neither lawyer would discuss their strategy, but they are both ready to go. So that's who we're dealing with. We also have a new player enters the game. This is Todd Blanche, who is now also on Trump's team. Politico got this one as well. Trump taps white-collar attorney to helm the indictment defense. This happened very recently. Todd Blanche resigned from his position as a partner at an elite New York law firm to join the former president's defense team. And can I just pause for a moment and just say, shout out to this guy for doing that? I mean, resigning and committing to defend Donald Trump. The media is going to try to bury this dude. The left is going to try to eviscerate his life. We know projects like the 6-5 Project and like other just worst of the worst kind of people. People like Chris Krebs. They say that lawyers who defend Trump should lose their licenses. Okay, they're actively working on that. There are groups that are actively working to take guys like this and their license away, to remove his livelihood, because they don't even think Trump should have a defense. They don't think he should be running for president. They don't think he should have any supporters at all. He should have no ability to speak. He should have no ability to spend or use money. He should have no ability to even exist freely in society anymore. He shouldn't have the right to legal counsel because they are cheaters. They want to remove you from the field any way they can. If you're a doctor who denies COVID, removal. You're a lawyer who supports Trump or challenges the violation of our civil rights every day by the overarching totalitarian government that is matriculating right now. All of that is their attempt to balance the game in their favor. And this dude, Todd Blanche, said, put me in, coach. I'm ready. No problem. Running into the fire, man. Shout out to Todd Blanche. We're pulling for you, brother. All right. Former President Donald Trump hired a top white-collar criminal defense lawyer and former federal prosecutor, that's I'm not so happy about, but as his lead counsel to handle Manhattan DA's office, their indictment of Trump. Until recently, he was a partner at a law firm, said in an email he was resigning because I've been asked to represent Trump in a recently charged case. I've decided it is best thing for me to do and an opportunity I should not pass up. It's true. You should not pass it up. This is a moment in time. This is a historical fork in the road in America. And we're going to see where people end up after this sort. And who is on the side of due process, equal protection of the law, the presumption of innocence, the standard of beyond a reasonable doubt, and who's not, who just ignores this and sits on their hands and doesn't speak out about this. Blanche declined to comment on Monday. Trump is also represented by other lawyers, Joe Tacopina and others. Former assistant U.S. attorney has previously represented Trump ally Paul Manafort and others, one-time associate of Giuliani. Apparently, the representation of Manafort may have caught Trump's eye. Very vocal about the indictment and other things. And so you can see Trump is assembling his team. We'll see where that goes. Now, somebody who is a lawyer for Trump, but who is not necessarily on his criminal defense team, but who is a brilliant and astute legal observer nonetheless, and a brilliant tactician. Her name is Alina Abba, and she was commenting on Trump's debacle.
Former president and do the legal team, the unsealing of the document, do you support that? Does he support that?
Yes, I mean, I think it will happen no matter what. I would like to see what the basis is
It
for
should be
this.
unsealed.
Let's remember that the real crime here that we have is that DA Bragg did leak that there were 30 to 34 counts. We already know that. That in itself is a felony. You are not to let that go. So at this point, I mean, and I like everybody in this country to be treated the same no matter who you are.
We don't know if the DA leaked that information.
Where'd it come from?
Well, we don't have that information, so... Well, it's not speculation. We don't have.
Where'd it come from?
So it came from their office.
Yeah, dans les mots. Where else did it come from? It's in their office. We don't know the DA leaked it. Well, where'd it come from? Did it just magically appear? No, it didn't, dans les mots. They leaked it, and it's illegal to do that. So hopefully the Republicans are investigating that, and Alvin Bragg is indicted and arrested and has his residence raided by the FBI. Don't hold your breath.